Hello, I'm Pia and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to share a card with you where I'm using the Distress Oxide inks together with the life-changing brushes and a lovely huge snowflake die from Concord and 9th. And I've chosen 3 colors for this project, this modern Christmas card, and I will use a life-changing brush, let's just call it brush, for each color. And I have decided to use the wilted violet, the salty ocean and the peacock feathers. These are 3 colors that I really like, and especially the combination. I find it ends up really looking good. So I haven't used these brushes actually very much, and this is the first time I'm using them with Distress Oxides. And I have been really not, wanting to use the oxides because of that chalky look, but I must admit that blending with them is really, really easy. Now, right now, for my project, it looks like shit. It looks like crap. It looks like something that's never, ever going to look good. But don't worry, just have a bit of patience and it will actually end up looking really, really good. Now it takes a while, but I keep changing from color to color and get them to blend into each other. So I go from the purple first to the blue to the turquoise and then back again and do it over and over again. Now I will guess someone will say it takes patience. My favorite is actually to do ink blending with just standard dye inks, and I have also used the brushes for that, and it works like a charm. Definitely does. Now these are the Picket Fence Studio brushes, and I will not be the one to say whether they are better or not than other brushes, but I can just say that they work. They definitely work, and I have had no problem at all cleaning them afterwards. Now I have designated 1 brush per color family. Can you say that? Well, let's just say that. So 1 brush for purple colors, 1 brush for blue colors, and so on. Now look at my project. Now it's actually really going somewhere. Now it's beginning to look good. Now I'm just adding the finishing touches and we are back to normal speed, because if you were going to see this in real time, you would probably be falling asleep by now, and we can't have that. Now you can also see how I'm like twisting or how in round circular motions when I'm using brushes. This is a die from Concord and 9th, Snow Flurry die, huge snowflake die. I love them when they're really, really huge. That didn't sound quite right, but just to add a bit of touch and extra interest, these water droplets, a lot of people use them, and I must admit it looks really, really good. Now I'm not very good at this, so I don't really very often do this technique, so it doesn't, but I don't care, it can still be used, and you just have to go with it. Sometimes things just turn out exactly how you planned it. Basically, mostly it doesn't turn out like that. Now, and this big blob of water drop I made, I can actually avoid it by placing my snowflake die just in between or around. How do you say it? How do you say it in English? Well, you know what I mean, don't you? Now it's just time to run it through my big shot. And oh, I even bring up the big shot. I usually don't do that when I'm filming. I'm using the magnetic platform when I'm die cutting the big shot, and I love it because that means that I usually don't need to use any micro pour tape or anything to hold the die in place. Now I have also found this really nice snowflake die from a Lawn Fawn stitch snowflake set, and I can place it just in the center of the big one from Concord and 9th, so I can get a little bit more detail. Now if I'm letting the big Snow Flurry die be, how do you say, complete, then it's perfect for a sentiment, but I didn't want that. I want it to be a bit more crystallized. Can you say that? Well, I'm saying that, crystallized. Now, originally, I had an idea that my snowflake would be placed off center on my card base. But when I'm working with it now, I don't really like it. It doesn't just doesn't feel right. It doesn't. So I do ponder quite a lot about this. I have erased or clipped out that part because you don't need to see that. But I end up placing it straight in the middle, and I really like that. But we need to give the card a little bit more interest. So we are going to use the splatter technique. I have here some silver spray, silver mist spray, and I'm giving it just a few drops and droplets. And now this will take time to dry, so I'm actually trying or not, I'm speeding up the process by using my heat gun. Next up is the sentiment. This color layering set from Hero Arts has a really, really nice sentiment. It's a combination of two fonts, and I like that combination. It's a Merry Christmas one, and I want to heat emboss it on black cardstock. I'm using the Mini Misty for this, because using a stamping tool really saves you a lot of grief. First up, I'm going to prep my cardstock with the powder tool. This is to avoid that the embossing powder will stick places I don't want it to stick, and you get a lot more crisp and nice result when you use a powder tool. I have this little piece of acetate grit which I'm using, and it helps me place my sentiment stamp completely right, how do you say, horizontally or in a straight line. And you also get a view of the top of my head. Sorry about that, but sometimes you just want to get a really good look at it when you're placing it. I've got the VersaMark embossing embossing ink ready, and I'm just getting my embossing powder. This is the Ranger Liquid Platinum, and if you ask me, it's a gorgeous color. It's kind of a mix between silver and gold, but more towards the silvery, a warm silver color. And I find that it's suitable for a lot of cards. That was what I'm trying to say. So I'm making sure my stamp gets a good layer of the embossing ink, and I can just calmly close the lid of the Misty and give it a good press. Next up, I'm just gonna go over and pour on the embossing powder. Oh, just a quick clean. Don't want to have it messed up. There you go. I can clean up afterwards when the project is done. Now, I pour on just one spoonful and dab it off, but I always give it a second go with this spoon, just in case, because it might not have stuck everywhere you wanted to. And 2 quick dabs from the back side, and then I'm ready to heat it. I use my heat gun, and this is what I believe. Just look, there you go. It's such a wonder every time you heat up embossing powder, how it suddenly just transforms and you get this really gorgeous shine to it. Now the next thing is that we need to cut the sentiment strip, and I'm just using my fingers to remove most of the powder from the powder tool, just to make it look more nicely. I'm using my Tim Holtz guillotine paper trimmer to make this strip, sentiment strip. Just need it to get it completely straight. Right, there we go. Just turned out perfectly. Next up, I just want this little strip to get some fishtails. I'm using the scissors to make some quick little snips. This is a very easy way to make a sentiment strip and give it a bit of detail. And you don't need any specific tools to do this, except just a pair of scissors. Probably a little a little pair of scissors is the best one to use, and not just the big kitchen scissor you have. Now next up we're going to, oh no, I decided that the card base needed a bit more interest, so I found my black mist as well to give it a few droplets of that, and I must admit I really like the result, just giving it a bit more interest and perhaps a bit more modern look. I suppose it's a bit of taste and how you look at it, but this with the splatter and the mist and droplets, I find that it gives cards a really nice touch, I'd say it. Now this has to dry a bit before I can work on, so I set it aside, and then I got back to the project, and now I can finish it off. I just need to adhere the different parts to the card base. Now for the big snowflake, I could choose to use 3D squares, 3D or craft foam, but I decided to go with the quick and easy solution, just liquid glue, and just making sure that the glue is in the corners and the ends so nothing will just pop up by accident. Just giving it a good go using the multimedia, no, you know what I mean, liquid glue. You can use whatever you have, just don't use too much so it will squeeze out from under the die cut. Using my tweezers to precisely get the snowflake in the center of the card base, and just making sure everything is down, touching the cardstock. Next up is the sentiment strip. This time I have found a couple of leftover pieces of craft foam. It's going to use that just to pop up the sentiment a bit, and it will give it a little bit of dimension, especially now when I've decided to adhere the big snowflake directly to the card base. Using my liquid glue again, just getting the craft foam to stick to the back side of the sentiment. When that is done, of course I need to add a bit more of liquid glue so I could adhere it to the card base on top of the snowflake, and we're almost there. Using the tweezers again. The tweezers is one of my favorite tools because that means I don't have 10 thumbs. Oh, and sorry about my head again. I'm using the grid lines on my craft mat to guide me to make sure the sentiment is straight on the card base, and that is basically why my head pops in now and then, because I want to get a good look from above. And this is the finished project with the lovely liquid platinum embossing powder and the Distress Oxide snowflake. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'd pop by again another day. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Otherwise, I just hope you have a good day. Bye.